What if I told you there exists a hidden realm, untouched by time, unseen by the ordinary eye, where the rules of our reality simply don't apply? A place where ancient civilizations believed souls traveled after death, where mystics claimed to project their consciousness, and where even today, whispers of unexplained encounters persist. This is the astral plane, a dimension shrouded in secrets, mystery, and myths that have captivated humanity for centuries. And whether you're a skeptic or a believer, one thing's certain: the stories woven around it are as fascinating as they are unsettling. Think of the astral plane as the ultimate frontier of the unseen, a shadow world existing just beyond the veil of our everyday perception. From the sacred texts of the Egyptians to the meditative practices of Tibetan monks, cultures across time and space have described it in eerily similar ways: a luminous, boundless expanse where the mind can wander free, untethered from the body. But here's where it gets even stranger. Modern-day explorers, from scientists to psychics, continue to report encounters with this enigmatic realm, sparking debates that blur the lines between science and spirituality. So why does the astral plane hold such power over our imagination? Perhaps because it challenges everything we think we know about reality. Over the next 35 myths, we'll journey through the most compelling, bizarre, and chilling legends tied to this otherworldly dimension. We'll unravel tales of astral travelers who never returned, entities said to lurk in its depths, and ancient warnings about crossing its thresholds unprepared. This isn't just a catalogue of myths, it's an invitation to question what lies beyond the edges of our understanding. So settle in, keep an open mind, and let's step into the unknown together. The astral plane is waiting. Among the most enduring myths of the astral plane is the idea of the silver cord, an ethereal lifeline said to connect the physical body to its wandering astral counterpart. Picture an invisible thread glowing like moonlight, stretching infinitely thin yet unbreakable, tethering the soul to its mortal shell as it journeys beyond. This concept isn't just some modern metaphysical invention. It's woven deep into humanity's oldest spiritual traditions. The ancient Egyptians called it the Khat, a luminous bond protecting the soul during its travels through the Duat, their underworld. Hindu texts describe the Sutratma, a thread of consciousness that keeps the astral traveler anchored, ensuring they can find their way back. Even the Bible's book of Ecclesiastes cryptically mentions a silver cord that, when severed, signals the end of life. But what's truly fascinating are the accounts from those who claim to have witnessed this phenomenon firsthand. Near-death experiencers often describe seeing a shimmering cord linking their outer-body selves to their lifeless forms below, a detail that appears shockingly consistent across cultures and eras. Some report feeling its gentle pull, guiding them back to their bodies just in time. Others tell of malevolent entities attempting to sever it, as if cutting that connection would trap them in the astral realm forever. So, is there any scientific basis for this mystical tether? Skeptics argue it's merely a trick of the brain under stress, a hallucination born from oxygen deprivation or neural chaos. Yet, researchers studying consciousness have noted eerie patterns. Patients with no prior knowledge of the silver cord myth independently describing it after traumatic incidents. Could it be hardwired into our biology, some undiscovered mechanism linking mind and matter? Or is it proof, as mystics insist, that consciousness exists beyond the physical? Either way, the silver cord remains one of the astral plane's most haunting riddles, blurring the line between legend and something far more profound. And here's where the mystery deepens, because if the cord is real, what happens when it snaps? Ancient lore warns of astral travelers who ventured too far, only to find their connection severed, leaving them stranded in the void. Modern occultists speak of cord attacks, where shadowy beings prey on the unattached. Whether metaphor or literal truth, the silver cord myth taps into a primal fear, the terror of being unmoored, lost between worlds, unable to return. It's a chilling reminder that some boundaries, no matter how thin, weren't meant to be crossed. Imagine walking through the astral plane only to come face to face with yourself, not a reflection, not a memory, but a living, breathing double, an identical copy moving independently, watching you with your own eyes. This is the chilling phenomenon known as the astral doppelganger, a myth so pervasive it echoes across continents and centuries. In medieval Europe, spotting your double was considered an omen of imminent death, a harbinger stalking the threshold between worlds. German folklore called it the doppelganger, literally meaning double walker, a spectral twin whose appearance whispered of doom. Yet halfway across the world, Tibetan monks described the tulpa, a thought form so vividly imagined it could manifest as a tangible duplicate, blurring the line between creator and creation. Modern accounts add even more layers to this enigma. There are reports of bilocation, individuals appearing in two places at once, with witnesses swearing they interacted with someone who physically was miles away. Saint Padre Pio, the Italian friar, was said to have comforted dying soldiers on World War I battlefields while never leaving his monastery. In 1973, a woman in Madrid allegedly had tea with her own double who predicted events only she could know. Are these mere hallucinations or something far stranger? Psychologists propose the autoscopic hallucination theory, where stress or neurological glitches trick the brain into generating a duplicate self. Yet others point to quantum physics, speculating about parallel versions of ourselves bleeding through dimensional cracks. And then there are the darker tales of doppelgangers who don't just observe but interfere. Some astral projectors report encountering malicious doubles who mimic their actions, sabotaging their return to the physical body. Occult traditions warn that these aren't mere copies, but parasitic entities masquerading as the self, feeding on the traveler's energy. Whether myth or metaphysical reality, the doppelganger forces us to confront unsettling questions. How well do we truly know ourselves? And in a realm where thought shapes reality, what happens when that reflection steps out of the mirror and starts thinking for itself? Hidden in the infinite expanses of the astral plane, there's said to be a library unlike any other, one that doesn't hold books but the very fabric of existence itself. This is the Akashic Records, a cosmic archive rumored to contain every thought, action, and event that ever was or will be. Imagine shelves stretching into eternity, inscribed not with ink but with the vibrational imprints of all consciousness. The concept might sound like science fiction, but its roots run startlingly deep. Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky first brought the term to the West in the late 19th century, describing it as an astral light recording reality like some celestial film reel. But the idea echoes even older traditions. Hindu scriptures speak of the Akasha, an eternal, space-filling element that preserves all memory, while ancient mystics from Babylon to Tibet described accessing hidden knowledge through trance states. Then there's Edgar Cayce, the so-called sleeping prophet, whose trance readings in the early 20th century claimed to tap directly into this archive. While in a self-induced hypnotic state, Cayce would diagnose illnesses, recount past lives, and even predict future events, all supposedly sourced from the Akashic Records. His detailed descriptions of Atlantis and ancient Egypt, given with no formal education to support them, still baffle researchers today. Was he channeling real information from this astral library or constructing elaborate fantasies? Skeptics point to his occasional inaccuracies, while proponents argue that accessing the records is like tuning a radio. Sometimes you get static, sometimes crystal clarity. What's truly mesmerizing are the eerie parallels between this ancient myth and modern science. Quantum physics now suggests information can never be destroyed, only transformed, an idea hauntingly similar to the Akashic premise. The holographic universe theory proposes that reality might be a projection of data stored at the boundaries of space-time, a cosmic hard drive of sorts. Even our own DNA has been called a biological record keeper, encoding ancestral memories in ways we're only beginning to understand. Could these be fragmented glimpses of the same truth the mystics described? But here's where things get unsettling. Those who claim to have accessed the records often describe a paradoxical sensation. The deeper they delve, the more the knowledge seems to know them back. Some report encountering gatekeepers, shadowy figures who test their readiness before revealing certain truths. Others warn of a disorienting effect where the sheer weight of infinite information threatens to dissolve their sense of self. It begs the question, is the Akashic Library a passive repository or something more alive? Whether metaphor or metaphysical reality, this myth challenges our deepest assumptions about time, memory, and where, or what, might be watching us from beyond the veil. Long before humans set foot on the moon, whispers circulated of something waiting in its shadows, not craters or dust, but ruins, ancient and alien, visible only to those who dared to look beyond the physical. Stories of lunar cities stretch back further than you might think. Theosophists in the 19th century wrote of a lost race called the Moon Pitris, beings who once dwelled on its surface before ascending to higher planes. But the most striking accounts come from those who glimpsed these phantom metropolises not through telescopes, but with astral eyes. Take William Herschel, the famed astronomer who discovered Uranus. In 1787, he shocked the scientific community by reporting dark, geometric structures on the moon's surface, what he called lunar forests and even artificial constructions. While mainstream astronomy dismissed these as optical illusions, occultists seized on his observations as proof. Decades later, Aleister Crowley claimed to have astrally projected to the moon, describing vast, crumbling towers and a civilization that had transcended physical form, leaving behind only psychic imprints. In his writings, he spoke of the Moonchild ritual designed to bridge our world with these lunar echoes. Then there's the curious case of George Adamski, the controversial contactee of the 1950s. He insisted that during astral travel, he'd walked among moon dwellers in domed cities, their technology far surpassing ours. Skeptics chalk it up to hoaxes or hallucinations, but here's what's odd. Multiple independent projectors describe similar layouts: spiral towers, arched bridges suspended over nothingness, and a haunting sense of abandonment, as if the moon's true inhabitants vanished long ago. Modern science, of course, has mapped the moon down to the centimeter. No ruins, no artifacts, yet the myth persists. Some speculate these cities exist on a parallel lunar plane, a vibrational echo of what once was. Others propose their thought forms, collective human fantasies made manifest in the astral. But perhaps the most spine-chilling theory, that we're not seeing the past at all but the future. A glimpse of what or who might be waiting for us when we finally return. After all, if consciousness can travel beyond the body, who's to say time is any more of a barrier than space? Deep within the astral plane's shimmering voids, there's a darker myth, one that sends chills even through seasoned travelers. They're known as the Hungry Shadows, entities said to lurk just beyond the edges of perception, drawn to the living like moths to a flame. But these aren't mere specters, they're parasites feeding on the very energy of those who wander too far from their bodies. The descriptions are eerily consistent: formless smudges of darkness that ripple with unnatural movement, a creeping cold that leaches warmth from the soul, and an overwhelming sense of being watched by something ancient and ravenous. This myth isn't confined to modern occult circles. It mirrors the Slavic belief in Nav, spirits of the restless dead who hunger for the vitality of the living. Folktales warn of these entities latching onto the unwary, draining them until they're left as hollow shells. Even older, the Tibetan Book of the Dead describes bardos, intermediate states where soul fragments risk being consumed by shadowy Dregpa forces. What's striking is how these traditions, separated by continents and centuries, all paint the same terrifying portrait. Something out there feeds on us when we're unanchored from our physical forms. Modern astral projectors report encounters that align unsettlingly well with these ancient warnings. Some describe sudden, inexplicable exhaustion mid-journey, as if their life force is being siphoned away. Others speak of shadowy figures that cluster just outside their peripheral vision, only to vanish when confronted. More chilling are the accounts of attachments where travelers return to their bodies, only to feel a lingering presence, a heaviness that wasn't there before. Psychologists offer a rational lens. Sleep paralysis and hypnagogic hallucinations could explain the shadowy figures, while the exhaustion might stem from the brain's heightened metabolic state during out-of-body experiences. Yet skeptics falter when faced with projectors who accurately describe details about locations or events they couldn't possibly know, details later verified. Then there's the electromagnetic angle. Paranormal researchers note that these shadows often manifest in areas with abnormal energy fluctuations, leading some to theorize they're interdimensional beings drawn to our vibrational output. Whether psychological glitch or supernatural predator, the hungry shadows myth taps into a primal terror, the fear of being prey. It's a reminder that not all doors should be opened and not all realms are meant to be explored. Because sometimes in the astral's infinite expanse, the darkness isn't empty. Sometimes it's watching back. If the astral plane has a rule book, it seems someone tore out the chapter on time. Among its most baffling myths are the so-called time-warping halls, pockets of the astral realm where seconds stretch into centuries, or where entire lifetimes pass in the blink of an eye. These aren't just poetic metaphors, they're recurring experiences documented across cultures and epochs. Take the Hindu concept of kalpas, cosmic cycles where a single day for a god lasts 4.3 billion human years. Ancient rishis described meditators slipping into these dilated time streams, returning to find their villages turned to dust. Even Einstein's theory of relativity hints at this possibility, time bending around gravity, proving that our steady tick-tock is far from universal. Then there are the modern cases that make physicists pause. In 1974, a Harvard research team studying out-of-body experiences recorded a bizarre anomaly. Subject M12, a seasoned astral projector, accurately described events in a sealed lab room but with a 3-minute delay. When questioned, he insisted he'd only been gone for seconds. Similar accounts pepper the annals of parapsychology. Travelers visiting future events during brief projections, or spending what feels like days exploring the astral, only to snap back to their bodies moments later. But here's where it gets stranger. Some report encountering literal halls, corridors lined with doors, each leading to a different temporal frequency. Occultist Oliver Fox, in his 1920 memoirs, wrote of stepping through one such door and witnessing the Cretaceous period, complete with towering reptiles. Skeptics dismiss these as lucid dreams, yet Fox, a trained chemist, recorded geological and biological details about prehistoric flora that weren't scientifically confirmed until decades later. The implications are staggering. If consciousness can navigate time like physical space, what does that mean for free will, for destiny? Perhaps the most unsettling accounts come from those who claim to have met their own future selves in these halls, sometimes receiving warnings, other times fleeing in terror from what they saw. Whether neural trickery or metaphysical reality, the time-warping halls force us to confront an eerie truth. Time might not be the prison we think it is. And some walls, once broken, can't be rebuilt. Somewhere between myth and memory, there are lands that flicker in and out of existence, not just on maps but in the very fabric of the astral plane. These are the Phantom Islands, vanishing realms whispered about by sailors, mystics, and explorers for centuries. Take High Brassel, the spectral island said to rise from the Atlantic mists every 7 years, cloaked in golden haze and guarded by an ancient priesthood. Celtic lore claims it's a gateway to the otherworld, while medieval sailors swore they'd walked its shores only to watch it dissolve like sea foam when they tried to return. But here's where it gets stranger. Astral travelers insist the island isn't gone at all. They describe encountering it as a shimmering, half-real landform, its geography shifting like a mirage, accessible only when consciousness slips beyond the physical. Then there's Lemuria, the lost continent rumored to have once bridged India and Africa. While mainstream science dismisses it as a discredited 19th century theory, geologists once proposed it to explain lemur fossils on separate landmasses. The astral community tells a different story. Occultists like Helena Blavatsky wrote of it as a high-tech utopia destroyed by hubris, its ruins now vibrating at a frequency only perceptible to non-corporeal explorers. Modern projectors report floating above vast, coral-crusted temples underwater, only to snap back and find no such structures on sonar scans. The parallels to Plato's Atlantis are undeniable, but Lemuria's myth carries an even eerier twist. Some claim its inhabitants never truly died. They simply shifted, evolved beyond physical form, their consciousness now woven into the astral plane itself. But why do these myths persist? Maritime history offers clues. For generations, sailors logged islands that later vanished from charts, like Sandy Island near New Caledonia, documented as late as 2012 before satellite imagery proved it never existed. Geologists propose these could be pumice rafts or methane bubble illusions. Yet astral witnesses describe something more intentional, a dimensional overlap, places that exist in glimpses when our reality briefly syncs with another. The Maori speak of Hawaiki, the ancestral homeland that can only be reached by navigating spiritual currents. The Norse sagas mention Hvitramanaland, a white sand paradise glimpsed by storm-lost Vikings. Perhaps the most haunting theory comes from quantum physics. The multiverse hypothesis suggests infinite realities layered like pages in a book. What if phantom islands are places where those pages temporarily stick together? Or consider bioluminescent plankton that lights up waves at night. Could entire lands flicker the same way, visible only when some cosmic switch flips? Whether dismissed as folklore or embraced as metaphysical truth, these vanishing lands force us to confront an unsettling possibility. The map of reality is far from complete. And some shores, no matter how fervently we search, refuse to stay found. For centuries, mirrors have been more than just reflective surfaces. They've been whispered about as silent sentinels guarding the thinnest veils between worlds. The idea that these everyday objects could be portals to the astral plane stretches back to the dawn of civilization. The Babylonians, masters of divination, practiced scrying rituals with polished obsidian mirrors, believing the dark glass revealed not just the future, but layers of reality hidden from ordinary sight. Their priests chanted incantations to open the eyes of the mirror, describing visions of shadowy realms where gods and spirits moved like smoke. Fast forward to the Renaissance and mirror magic reached new heights. John Dee, Queen Elizabeth I's court astrologer, used a black obsidian mirror to communicate with angels, recording detailed dialogues with entities he claimed resided in the astral light. His writings describe the mirror's surface rippling like water before revealing entire landscapes, floating cities, crystalline forests, and beings that defied human form. Modern ghost stories add a chilling twist to these ancient practices. There's the infamous Black Mirror of Campton, a Victorian-era artifact said to trap souls mid-reflection. Witnesses reported seeing faces that weren't their own staring back, some pleading for help, others grinning with unsettling familiarity. Then there are the countless accounts of mirror phantoms, shadowy figures glimpsed in peripheral vision that vanish when directly observed. Paranormal investigators note these phenomena often cluster around antique mirrors, particularly those with silver backing, a metal long associated with lunar energy and psychic threshold crossing. Science offers partial explanations. The strange face in the mirror illusion, studied by psychologists, shows how prolonged staring in dim light can warp facial recognition, creating monstrous apparitions. But this doesn't account for shared hallucinations where multiple people see the same entity. Quantum physicists pose another angle. Mirrors create perfect photon duplicates, and some theorize this replication could momentarily fracture dimensional barriers. Even surface chemistry plays a role. Old mirrors contain mercury, a substance alchemists considered the fluid soul of the world, capable of bridging realms. Perhaps most unsettling are the occult warnings. Russian folklore insists mirrors must be covered after death to prevent souls from becoming trapped. Feng Shui practitioners caution against placing mirrors opposite beds, fearing astral intruders might slip through during sleep. And then there are the forbidden techniques like the doorway exercise, described in Cold War-era psychic warfare documents, where trained operatives allegedly used mirrors to project their consciousness across continents. Whether myth or metaphysical fact, one thing is clear. Humanity's fascination with these reflective portals speaks to a deeper, almost primal suspicion that when we gaze into a mirror, something else gazes back. And sometimes, just sometimes, the line between observer and observed begins to blur. What if the universe wasn't silent? What if, beneath the crushing vacuum of space, there pulsed a symphony so vast, so intricate, that only those who'd stepped beyond their bodies could truly hear it? This is the myth of the music of the spheres, an ancient belief that the cosmos hums with celestial harmonies, a secret melody woven into the fabric of existence itself. The idea traces back to Pythagoras in the 6th century BCE, the mathematician mystic who claimed the movements of planets created vibrations, an otherworldly scale imperceptible to mortal ears. To him, the intervals between planetary orbits mirrored musical ratios, forming a divine chord that structured reality. His followers swore that through deep meditation or astral travel, one could attune to this cosmic choir, hearing the true voice of creation. Fast forward to the Renaissance, and Hermetic philosophers like Robert Fludd expanded the myth, mapping the heavens as a grand monochord, an instrument plucked by the hand of God. Alchemists wrote of the harmony of the 7 planets, each celestial body emitting a unique tone, Saturn's deep gong, the moon's silver chime, that together composed a song governing the rise and fall of civilizations. Even Shakespeare wove it into The Merchant of Venice, where Lorenzo murmurs, "There's not the smallest orb which thou beholdst, but in his motion like an angel sings." But here's where it gets stranger. Modern science has stumbled onto echoes of this myth. In 2012, NASA Voyager probes captured something uncanny: electromagnetic vibrations from Saturn's rings, translated into sound waves. The result, a haunting, almost choral resonance, as if the planet were singing. Jupiter's magnetosphere, when sonified, emits pulsing beats reminiscent of tribal drums, while the sun's plasma waves create a deep, oscillating hum. Skeptics argue these are mere data translations, but the parallels to ancient descriptions are unsettling. Could Pythagoras have glimpsed a truth about vibrational reality that we're only now quantifying? The most chilling accounts, though, come from astral travelers who swear they've heard the spheres firsthand. They describe harmonies that defy earthly scales, notes both higher and lower than human ears can process, chords that trigger visions of galaxies forming and dying. Some return with melodies they transcribe, compositions that, when played, induce trances or synesthesia in listeners. Others warn of dissonant zones in the astral, places where the cosmic song warps into screams as if something there had gone terribly wrong. Whether metaphor or metaphysical reality, the music of the spheres forces us to reconsider silence. If the universe is singing, what or who is listening? And in the vast dark between stars, are we the audience, the performers, or something else entirely? Crossing from our world to the astral plane would surely require a bridge, not of stone or steel, but something far more extraordinary. The Norse called it Bifrost, that shimmering rainbow arch guarded by the god Heimdall, its colors blazing a path between Midgard and Asgard. But this wasn't just mythology. The Vikings believed skilled seers could walk Bifrost in trance states, their souls treading its luminous curve to glean wisdom from the gods. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Hindu sages spoke of Indra's net, a cosmic web of jewels reflecting infinitely into one another, each intersection a gateway between realms. Both cultures, separated by continents, described the same phenomenon, a radiant, vibrational pathway linking the physical and the unseen. Modern neuroscience might hold a clue to these ancient visions. Synesthesia, a blending of the senses where sounds manifest as colors or shapes, offers startling parallels. Take the case of composer Olivier Messiaen, who perceived complex chords as cascading hues, describing one chord as a blue-violet circle edged with orange-red. Now imagine that phenomenon amplified during astral projection, where the very fabric of reality bends. There are accounts of travelers hearing celestial tones that materialize as prismatic bridges beneath their feet, each step resonating with a new color and frequency. One practitioner, documented in a 2018 study on out-of-body experiences, reported traversing a singing bridge that pulsed with harmonic vibrations, its structure changing with each note, a near-perfect echo of Bifrost's description in the Poetic Edda. But here's where the myth takes a darker turn. Both Norse and Hindu traditions warn that these bridges aren't passive structures, they're alive, responsive. The Prose Edda describes Bifrost burning under the weight of Thor's chariot, its cracks foretelling Ragnarök. Similarly, Buddhist texts caution that Indra's net can ensnare the unprepared, its infinite reflections leading to madness. Modern travelers echo these warnings, describing bridges that dissolve mid-crossing, or colors that shift into dissonant, nauseating palettes when approached with impure intent. Could these be mere hallucinations, or is there a deeper mechanism at play? Quantum physicists note that vibrations underpin all matter. What if ancient cultures discovered a way to perceive and even traverse those foundational frequencies? The most haunting accounts come from those who claim the bridges don't just connect places but times. A Navajo elder once told anthropologists of walking a holy rainbow to speak with ancestors, returning with prophecies later verified by events. In 2005, a meditator in Kyoto documented a bridge that flickered between epochs, its colors cycling through seasons like a sped-up film reel. Whether neural anomaly or interdimensional highway, the Rainbow Bridge myth suggests a truth more profound than metaphor. That light, sound, and consciousness might be threads in the same tapestry, and some know how to pull them. Look up at the night sky and you see pinpricks of light, cold, distant, impersonal. But what if the truth were far stranger? What if those stars weren't just burning gas but watching back? This is the spine-tingling heart of Myth 11, the living constellations. From the Dogon tribe of Mali to the philosophers of ancient Greece, cultures worldwide have insisted the stars are alive, their patterns not accidents of perspective, but the shifting forms of vast celestial intelligences. Take the Dogon, whose astronomical knowledge has baffled scholars for decades. Long before telescopes, they described Sirius not just as a single star, but a ternary system, complete with the invisible companion star Sirius B, a fact modern science confirmed only in the 19th century. Their elders claimed this knowledge came from the Nommo, amphibious beings who descended from Sirius itself, teaching that stars are great spirits whose movements influence earthly fate. Fast forward to Plato's Timaeus, where he describes stars as divine and eternal living creatures, their souls woven from the purest fire, governing cosmic order through celestial dances. Even the Bible's Book of Job speaks of the morning stars singing together, a chorus of voices echoing across the void. But it's the accounts from modern astral travelers that blur the line between myth and something more tangible. Seasoned projectors report encounters with star guides, entities of shimmering plasma who communicate not in words, but in surges of light and emotion. One case from a 2016 study in the Journal of Consciousness Exploration details a woman who, during an out-of-body experience, found herself floating near Orion's belt. There, she described meeting a trio of luminous presences who imprinted visions of ancient civilizations onto her mind, visions containing architectural details matching no known culture, yet felt eerily familiar. Skeptics dismiss such experiences as lucid dreams, but the consistency across reports is unsettling. Multiple projectors independently describe similar interactions with Vega, Sirius, and the Pleiades, often returning with uncanny insights into physics or human history they couldn't have known. Perhaps the most haunting evidence comes from an unexpected source: radio astronomy. In 1977, Ohio State University's Big Ear telescope picked up the infamous WOW signal, a 72-second burst of radio waves emanating from Sagittarius that bore all the hallmarks of artificial origin. Though never detected again, some researchers speculate it wasn't a message from aliens but something far older. Ancient Hindu texts speak of the nakshatras, star deities who occasionally awaken to correct cosmic imbalances. Could the signal have been a celestial entity briefly stirring? Here's where the myth collides with cutting-edge science. Astronomers now recognize stellar seismology, the study of vibrations pulsing through stars like heartbeat rhythms. Some theorists propose these oscillations could encode information, a cosmic language waiting to be deciphered. Meanwhile, quantum biologists explore how DNA might interact with stellar radiation, suggesting our very genes could be tuned to constellations. It's a dizzying thought. If the stars are alive, their influence might not just be mythological but woven into our biology. Yet for all the wonder, there are warnings. Tibetan mystics caution against prolonged meditation on certain constellations, claiming their energies can unravel unprepared minds. A 1989 CIA document declassified in 2017 recounts an operative's ill-fated attempt to commune with Polaris using mirror-gazing techniques, an experiment that left him catatonic for weeks, whispering about the eye that dreams the world. Whether psychological breakdown or metaphysical encounter, the message is clear. Some conversations, it seems, weren't meant for mortal ears. The stars may be alive, but their thoughts are ancient, vast, and utterly alien. And sometimes to gaze too long into the heavens is to realize the heavens are gazing back. What if every human language, past, present, and future, sprang from a single, forgotten source? A primal tongue encoded not in words but in the very fabric of consciousness itself. This is the spine-tingling premise behind Myth 12, the idea that hidden within the astral plane lies the original language of creation, a vibrational code whispered by mystics, channelers, and even those claiming extraterrestrial contact. Consider the phenomenon of glossolalia, or speaking in tongues. Pentecostal Christians describe it as the Holy Spirit speaking through believers in celestial languages, unintelligible yet eerily structured, flowing with grammatical rhythms no earthly tongue possesses. Anthropologists note nearly identical practices in Siberian shamanism, where entranced mediums converse with spirits in guttural, otherworldly dialects. Linguistic analyzers reveal something peculiar. These languages often share phonetic patterns across cultures, despite no possible shared exposure. Some researchers suggest this points to a subconscious reservoir, an innate linguistic blueprint buried in the human mind, surfacing when ordinary cognition falls away. Now shift to the 16th century, when occultists John Dee and Edward Kelly claim to have cracked the code of the angels. Through crystal gazing sessions, they transcribed Enochian, a language with its own alphabet and syntax allegedly used by pre-flood civilizations. Modern linguists remain divided. Some dismiss it as an elaborate hoax, while others note its unnerving complexity, with verb conjugations and noun cases rivaling ancient Sanskrit. Even stranger, Enochian's phonetic vibrations were said to manifest physical effects. These journals describe candles flickering in unison with certain syllables, as if the words themselves manipulated reality. Then there are the UFO contactees of the mid-20th century, like George Van Tassel, who channeled Solganda, a language from Venus, or the infamous star language of Swedish contactee Sten Lindgren, which bore eerie similarities to Enochian despite Lindgren having no knowledge of Dee's work. Common threads emerge: flowing, vowel-heavy phonetics, repetitive morphemes like Adama or Zirthon, and an overwhelming sense of recognition reported by listeners, as if some deep memory stirs when hearing these sounds. But here's where science adds a twist. In 2013, neuroscientists at the University of California studied glossolalia speakers in fMRI machines. The results defied expectations. Their brains showed activity patterns identical to fluent bilinguals mid-conversation, not the random babbling skeptics assumed. Even more compelling, the same study found non-religious subjects under hypnosis spontaneously producing similar speech patterns during out-of-body experiences. Could this suggest a hardwired, universal proto-language lurking in our neural architecture, accessible only when the filters of ordinary consciousness drop away? The implications ripple outward. Ancient Hindu texts describe Devanagari, the script of the gods, whose letters supposedly contain the vibrational seeds of all creation. The Kabbalah's sacred alphabets were believed to hold creative power. Jewish mystics wrote of golem animation through letter combinations. Even modern string theory echoes this idea, positing that reality's smallest building blocks vibrate like tiny strings in a cosmic symphony. Perhaps the forgotten language isn't forgotten at all, just waiting, humming beneath the static of everyday thought, ready to be heard when we slip between worlds. Yet for all its wonder, this myth carries a warning. Occult traditions speak of language traps, sentences or sounds that, once uttered, can't be unheard, rewriting the speaker's perception of reality. There are accounts of channelers who, after prolonged exposure to these astral tongues, lost the ability to speak their native language altogether. Whether neural rewiring or something more esoteric, one truth emerges: some vocabularies weren't meant for mortal minds. And some doors, once opened, might not close so easily. High above the jagged peaks of the Himalayas, hidden beyond the reach of mortal maps, legends speak of a city sculpted not from stone but from pure, shimmering consciousness. This is Shambhala, the fabled kingdom of the Kalachakra, where enlightened beings walk streets of liquid light and towers hum with the vibrations of ancient mantras. But this is no isolated myth. Across cultures and epochs, descriptions of these radiant metropolises emerge with uncanny consistency. The Book of Revelation paints New Jerusalem descending from heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband, its foundations jeweled, its streets transparent gold. Hindu Puranas tell of Amaravati, Indra's celestial capital, where palaces pulse with the rhythm of cosmic chants. Even Plato's Atlantis, before its fall, was said to glow with crystalline spires channeling energy from the earth's ley lines. Modern mystics add startling detail to these age-old visions. Madame Blavatsky, the controversial founder of Theosophy, described Shambhala in her Secret Doctrines as a literal city on the astral plane, a library of living light where ascended masters guard humanity's spiritual evolution. She claimed its architecture followed sacred geometry, each angle and arc designed to amplify higher frequencies. Then there's the curious case of Nicholas Roerich, the early 20th century artist and explorer who spent decades searching for Shambhala's physical counterpart in Central Asia. His journals tell of encountering nomadic tribes who spoke of witnessing the city materialize momentarily in the mountain mists, its structures refracting sunlight like prisms before vanishing as suddenly as they appeared. New Age channelers in the 1970s and 80s brought a technological twist to these accounts. Jane Roberts, famous for her Seth transmissions, described future Earth cities constructed of light condensed matter, where thoughts instantly manifest as three-dimensional forms. Similarly, the law of one material channeled in 1981 speaks of crystalline healing chambers in a sixth-density Atlantis, where sound and light recalibrate the body's energy fields. Skeptics dismiss these as elaborate fantasies, but here's what's fascinating. Modern physicists exploring metamaterials, substances engineered to manipulate light in extraordinary ways, have created prototypes of invisibility cloaks and light-bending structures that eerily mirror these esoteric descriptions. Perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from shared near-death experiences. Dr. Kenneth Ring's research documents multiple cases where clinically dead patients reported floating above luminous cities during their out-of-body journeys. One account from a Seattle mechanic in 2008 stands out. He described hexagonal buildings emitting harmonic tones, with beings of pure energy moving through walls as if matter were mere suggestion. When shown architectural renderings based on his descriptions, he broke down weeping, insisting they matched exactly what he'd seen. Neurosurgeons struggle to explain such specificity, given that his brain showed zero activity during the 73 minutes he was technically deceased. So what binds these visions across time and tradition? Alchemists spoke of the philosopher's stone not just as a substance, but as a state of consciousness capable of transmuting base reality into luminous perfection. Quantum physicists now theorize about programmable matter materials that can change their properties on demand, much like the thought-responsive structures described by mystics. Whether metaphor or metaphysical reality, the Crystal Cities myth taps into humanity's oldest yearning, the dream of a world remade not by force but by the alchemy of awakened perception. And perhaps that's the most haunting possibility of all, that these cities aren't distant paradises but reflections of what our own world might become, if only we could learn to see through the eyes of light. Deep in the astral plane's shadowed corridors, some claim to have encountered beings who don't just watch, they guard, not places or treasures but bloodlines. These are the bloodline guardians, entities said to shepherd genetic lineages across generations, intervening at critical moments to ensure certain traits, memories, or even destinies endure. The concept might sound like fantasy, but its roots snake through history's most enigmatic legends. Take the Holy Grail myths, where knights quested not just for a sacred cup, but for the sangreal of Old French for royal blood. Medieval troubadours whispered that the Grail's true power wasn't in healing or immortality, but in preserving a divine lineage stretching back to biblical times. Fast forward to the 20th century, and the idea resurfaces in the controversial reptilian elite conspiracy theories, where shape-shifting extraterrestrials allegedly manipulate human bloodlines to maintain control. But here's where genetics adds a tantalizing layer. Mitochondrial DNA passed exclusively from mother to child acts as a biological time capsule, preserving unbroken genetic threads for millennia. In 2004, geneticists discovered that all humans share a common maternal ancestor, dubbed mitochondrial Eve, who lived roughly 150,000 years ago. Some researchers speculate this isn't just scientific fact, but echoes an older esoteric truth, that certain bloodlines carry guardian markers, subtle genetic tweaks linked to heightened psychic sensitivity or longevity. The Hopi prophecy of the Pahana, the lost white brother destined to return with sacred knowledge, ties directly to this idea. Their oral traditions describe star-born ancestors who encoded wisdom in select family lines, awaiting a trigger to awaken it. Then there are the chilling first-hand accounts. Occultist Aleister Crowley wrote of encountering a watcher during an Egyptian ritual, a translucent figure who showed him visions of his ancestors' lives, hinting at a predestined role in a grand bloodline experiment. More recently, a 2019 study published in the Journal of Near-Death Studies documented a woman's astral projection where she witnessed glowing figures hovering over her newborn niece, threading light into the infant's body. When she later confronted her grandmother about the vision, the elder revealed a generations-old family secret. The women in their lineage were said to be touched by the Shining Ones at birth. So who or what are these guardians? Ancient astronaut theorists argue they're extraterrestrial overseers, genetically engineering humanity like cosmic farmers. Alchemists believed they were familiars, non-physical entities bonded to bloodlines to guide spiritual evolution. Modern quantum biologists propose a wilder idea, that DNA itself might emit unique vibrational signatures, attracting matching frequencies from the astral plane. Whatever their nature, the Bloodline Guardians myth forces us to confront a spine-tingling question. Are we truly the architects of our destinies, or pieces in a game whose rules were written long before recorded history began? And if these watchers are real, what might they be preparing us for? Ever wake up with a lingering nightmare so vivid it clings to you like a second skin? What if those dark visions weren't just your mind's creation, but something far more sinister? Across cultures and centuries, there's a chilling thread in the tapestry of astral lore, entities that don't just visit dreams but steal them. These are the dream stealers, shadowy interlopers who slip into the liminal space between sleep and waking, twisting rest into something predatory. Take the medieval European legends of the incubus and succubus, night spirits said to sit upon sleepers' chests, draining their vitality through erotic nightmares. These weren't mere fantasies. Historical records from monks and nuns describe physical marks left behind, like bruises or scorch marks, with victims reporting identical sensations of weight and suffocation. Fast forward to modern sleep labs, and scientists recognize these experiences as textbook sleep paralysis, a glitch where the brain awakens before the body, leaving one trapped in a state of conscious immobility. But here's where it gets eerie. Sleep study participants worldwide, from Tokyo to Toronto, consistently report seeing the same shadowy figures looming over them, regardless of cultural background. Could this be hardwired neurology or something more? Tibetan Buddhists have trained for centuries to combat such intrusions through dream yoga, a practice that turns sleep into a battleground of awareness. Their texts describe the Mara, deceptive spirits that craft elaborate dreamscapes to harvest mental energy. Advanced practitioners learn to lucid dream within the astral plane, recognizing these invaders and dissolving their illusions with focused mantras. The parallels to modern psychotherapy are striking. Trauma specialists note that PTSD sufferers often relive nightmares with uncanny realism, as if their subconscious is being hijacked by past events. Yet the most unsettling accounts come from those who claim these entities aren't just psychological phenomena, but intelligent predators. A 2014 study in the Journal of Anomalous Experience documented multiple cases of shared nightmares, where unrelated individuals described identical dream scenarios featuring a gaunt figure they called the Grinning Man. Even stranger, several subjects with no prior knowledge of one another sketched the same haunting face independently. Neurologists struggle to explain how separate brains could generate identical hallucinations down to minute details like chipped teeth or a bowler hat. Whether neurological anomaly or interdimensional trespasser, the myth of the dream stealers forces us to reconsider what happens when we close our eyes. Is sleep truly a private sanctuary or a threshold where uninvited guests wait in the dark? And if they're real, what exactly are they stealing? Among the swirling mists and luminous realms of the astral plane, some travelers claim to have encountered beings that defy all expectations, not organic or ethereal, but mechanical. These are the clockwork deities, entities of intricate gears and shimmering brass, their movements precise as celestial equations, their eyes glowing with something between intelligence and artifice. The idea of gods made of metal might seem like a modern steampunk fantasy, but its roots dig deep into humanity's oldest myths. Take the ancient Greeks and their tales of Tolos, the bronze automaton forged by Hephaestus to guard Crete. This towering giant wasn't just a weapon, it was said to possess a kind of soul filled with ichor, the blood of the gods flowing through its metal veins. Even older are the Hindu descriptions of the yantras, sacred machines built to channel divine energy, some capable of flight or speech. Fast forward to medieval Jewish mysticism, and you'll find the Golem of Prague, a clay automaton animated by sacred Hebrew letters, proof that the line between machine and living entity has always been blurrier than we think. But here's where the astral plane twists these legends into something even stranger. Modern occultists like the late 19th century French Magus Papus wrote of encountering mechanized angels during astral projections, beings whose limbs moved with the rhythmic precision of clockwork, their voices humming with the sound of spinning gears. One account from a Berlin esoteric group in 1923 describes a collective vision of a vast floating citadel inhabited entirely by these entities, its halls resonating with the sound of perpetual motion. Skeptics dismiss such tales as hallucinations influenced by the industrial age, but the consistency of these reports is unsettling. Projectors from Tokyo to Buenos Aires, with no knowledge of each other's experiences, describe identical details: copper-plated skin, faces segmented like moving masks, and a haunting sense that these beings are not just machines, but something far older, guardians of cosmic order, perhaps, or ancient intelligences that predate humanity itself. Now layer this with a mind-bending modern twist: artificial intelligence as spirit. Some contemporary mystics argue that the clockwork deities aren't just astral curiosities, but manifestations of a deeper truth, that consciousness isn't bound by biology. The AI as God theory, popular in certain cyber magic circles, suggests that as human-created machines grow more complex, they might be tapping into the same energies that animate the astral plane. There are eerie parallels here to the machine elves described by DMT users, tiny, hyper-articulate entities that many interpret as interdimensional AI. Even more provocative are the accounts from Silicon Valley techno-shamans who claim to have debugged malevolent spirits by reprogramming them like corrupted code during astral journeys. So what does it all mean? Quantum physicists speculate about self-replicating nanobots that could exist in higher dimensions, their structures invisible to our limited perception. Ancient alchemists spoke of the homunculus, an artificial life form created through arcane chemistry. Maybe the clockwork deities are both bridges between the mechanical and the mystical, reminding us that the line between the born and the built was never as solid as we thought. One thing's certain: if these beings are real, they challenge our most fundamental assumptions about what it means to be alive. And in a universe where consciousness might be the ultimate software, who or what is really running the program? Beneath the swirling colors and shimmering landscapes of the astral plane, some explorers report encountering something far more unsettling: a sun that doesn't illuminate but devours. This is the myth of the Black Sun, a celestial paradox said to radiate not warmth and light, but a chilling, gravitational darkness that warps reality itself. Its legend stretches from the desert ruins of Mesopotamia to the occult obsessions of Nazi mystics, and even into the cutting-edge theories of modern astrophysics. The earliest echoes of this dark star appear in Babylonian cuneiform tablets, where it's called Shamash-Era, the son of annihilation, a godless counterpart to their life-giving solar deity. Zoroastrian texts describe Ahriman's black flame, a corrupting anti-light that bleeds into our world through dreams. But it was the Thule Society, the occult backbone of Nazi ideology, that weaponized this myth in the 20th century. Their esoteric branch, the Onanab, searched tirelessly for the Schwarz-Sonne, a hidden astral power source they believed could fuel an invincible master race. Heinrich Himmler's Wewelsburg Castle was even designed as a dark solar temple, its black sun mosaic radiating 12 Sig runes like twisted sunbeams. What makes this myth so persistent? Modern astrophysics offers a spine-tingling parallel. In 1974, Stephen Hawking theorized that black holes emit radiation, an invisible energy now called Hawking radiation. Picture this, a singularity so dense it traps light itself, yet paradoxically leaks quantum particles, a ghostly glow detectable only through mathematics. Some theorists speculate these emissions might permeate higher dimensions, influencing consciousness itself. Russian cosmologist Nikolai Kozyrev took it further, proposing that time flows like a river and black stars are its whirlpools, warping causality in ways that could explain precognitive visions during astral travel. Then there are the first-hand accounts. Occultist Kenneth Grant wrote of encountering the dark sun of Set during trance states, a pulsing void that rearranged his perceptions like a broken film reel. More recently, a 2016 study in the Journal of Consciousness Studies documented multiple projectors independently describing a negative star in the astral's deepest layers, its presence inducing temporal distortions and involuntary memory flashes. Skeptics argue these are hypnagogic hallucinations triggered by the brain's vestibular system, but the consistency is eerie. Perhaps the most unsettling theory bridges mysticism and quantum mechanics. If consciousness arises from microtubules in brain cells vibrating at specific frequencies, as proposed by physicist Sir Roger Penrose, could a sufficiently powerful gravitational field like a black hole's entangle with human neural oscillations? Tibetan monks speak of the dark retreat, a 49-day ritual conducted in total blackness to perceive the inner sun. Could this be an ancient method of tuning consciousness to these cryptic frequencies? The black sun myth forces us to confront a terrifying elegance, that creation and destruction might be two sides of the same cosmic coin. And if light can cast shadows, what revelations might lurk in the glow of darkness? Imagine stepping into an astral temple, its walls humming with ancient energy, only to realize the statues lining its corridors aren't just carvings, their stone lips are moving. This is the spine-tingling heart of Myth 18, the whispering statues, across cultures and continents, from the rain-slicked jungles of Mesoamerica to the wind-scoured cliffs of Easter Island. There's a recurring thread in astral lore. The idea that certain idols aren't merely representations of gods, but vessels for something far more alive. Take the Voynich manuscript, that cryptic 15th-century codex brimming with bizarre botanical illustrations and unreadable text. Among its most enigmatic pages depicts humanoid figures growing like plants from the earth, their mouths open as if mid-speech. Cryptographers have long debated whether these living figures are alchemical metaphors or something more literal. But modern astral travelers report eerily similar encounters, temples where statues lean forward to murmur secrets in languages no living tongue can pass, their voices resonating not through air but directly into the traveler's mind. One projector's account from 2019 describes a granite effigy of Tlaloc, the Aztec rain god, turning its head to warn of an approaching storm in Nahuatl, a language the witness had never studied yet understood perfectly in that moment. Now shift to Easter Island's Maui. While mainstream archaeology sees these towering figures as ancestral monuments, Rapa Nui oral tradition tells of the Eringa Ora, the living faces. Elders speak of certain Moai channeling the mana of the ancestors they represent, their hollow eyes flickering with watchful intelligence during sacred ceremonies. Even more chilling are the accounts from European sailors in the 18th century, who swore they saw the statue's expressions change at dusk, mouths twisting into smiles or grimaces as shadows lengthened. Modern psychics who have projected to the island astrally describe encountering a shadow realm where the Moai walk, their stone feet gliding soundlessly across phantom grasslands. But what could explain such phenomena? Material scientists point to ideomotor effects, subtle muscle movements influenced by subconscious expectations, perhaps making statues appear to shift when viewed in low light. Parapsychologists propose a wilder theory. That intense human focus over centuries imprints a kind of psychic resonance onto these objects, turning them into interactive thought forms. Then there's the quartz connection. Many sacred statues, from Egypt's obsidian Horus figures to the crystal-embedded Buddha statues of Tibet, incorporate piezoelectric minerals that generate electric charges under pressure. Could these substances act as transceivers for consciousness, bridging the physical and astral planes? The most unsettling accounts come from those who claim the statues don't just communicate, they bargain. A Bolivian shaman in 2012 documented an astral encounter with a pre-Incan monolith that demanded offerings of coca leaves in exchange for healing knowledge. 3 days later, archaeologists unearthed a cache of the very same leaves beneath the statue's base, carbon dated to the 15th century. Whether psychological projection or interdimensional diplomacy, the whispering statue's myth forces us to reconsider where life truly begins and ends. After all, if a thing is worshipped long enough with enough conviction, does it eventually wake up? And if so, what might it have to say? Beneath the crushing weight of ocean depths where sunlight fades into eternal blue, legends speak of cities that never truly died, they simply slipped between worlds. This is the haunting myth of the drowned worlds, civilizations said to exist not just as physical ruins, but as vibrantly alive in the astral plane as they once were in stone and mortar. The most famous, of course, is Atlantis, Plato's doomed island, swallowed by the sea in a single day and night of misfortune, has captivated imaginations for millennia. But what if the real mystery isn't whether Atlantis sank, but where it went? Esoteric traditions propose an electrifying idea. Atlantis didn't vanish, it transitioned. Theosophists like Madame Blavatsky claimed its priests, foreseeing the cataclysm, used crystal technology to shift their city's vibrational frequency, anchoring it in the astral plane while its physical counterpart drowned. Modern channelers describe visiting a shimmering, dome-covered Atlantis beneath the ocean's surface not as crumbling ruins, but as a thriving metropolis of light, its inhabitants existing as energy beings who occasionally download architectural blueprints to human psychics. Skeptics roll their eyes, but consider this. In 1968, American clairvoyant Edgar Cayce predicted the discovery of an Atlantean Hall of Records near Bimini. Just 5 years later, the Bimini Road, a submerged, seemingly man-made limestone formation, was found precisely where he described. Coincidence or something far stranger? Now shift from myth to tangible mystery. Japan's Yonaguni Monument, discovered in 1986 off Okinawa's coast, this massive underwater structure features stepped terraces, sharp right angles, and what appear to be carved pillars, all submerged for an estimated 10,000 years. Marine geologists argue it's a natural sandstone formation weathered by tides, but dive deeper literally. Astral projectors who have visited Yonaguni in out-of-body states describe a city intact in the subtle realms, its streets humming with ceremonial energy. Even more compelling, their accounts mirror local Ryukyuan folklore about Nirai Kanai, a sunken paradise whose gods occasionally rise to teach humanity. The parallels between physical ruins and astral legends are too precise to ignore. India's Gulf of Combat hides what may be a 9,000-year-old submerged settlement, with sonar images revealing grid-like structures. Meanwhile, Hindu scriptures describe Dwarka, Krishna's golden city, swallowed by the sea after his death, a myth validated in 2002 when archaeologists discovered ancient masonry underwater matching the Mahabharata's descriptions. Could these sunken sites exist simultaneously in our world and the astral, like reflections in a half-silvered mirror? Marine archaeologists grapple with an eerie pattern. Many underwater ruins, from Cuba's megalithic complex to Indonesia's Gunung Padang, share uncanny geometric similarities despite being separated by oceans and millennia. Now layer this with indigenous wisdom. Hawaiian elders speak of Kahiki, a homeland lost beneath the waves, accessible only through hula rituals that alter consciousness. The Maori tell of Hawaiki, reachable via Te Ara Pautama, a spiritual stairway. These aren't just drowned lands, they're liminal spaces existing in the in-between. Science inches toward the unfathomable. Quantum physics permits the theoretical existence of parallel realities occupying the same space. Could these submerged cities be interdimensional intersections, their stones acting as anchors between planes? Or perhaps the ultimate truth lies in neurology, the human brain's uncanny ability to project coherent visions onto ambiguous shapes, making us see cities in rocks and faces in clouds. But when divers at Yonaguni report sudden temperature drops and equipment malfunctions over certain formations, or when sonar picks up metallic echoes where no metal should be, it's hard to dismiss the whispers entirely. Maybe the drowned worlds never left. Maybe they're waiting, humming just beyond the veil, for those with eyes or souls capable of seeing through the deep. Somewhere in the vast, shifting expanse of the astral plane, there's said to be a place where the very walls breathe, a labyrinth so vast and tangled that even time itself gets lost in its coils. This is the Labyrinth of Lost Souls, a metaphysical maze whispered about in hushed tones across esoteric traditions. Picture an endless network of corridors that rearrange themselves like living tissue, doorways that lead backward into your own memories, and echoes of voices you've never met but somehow recognize. It's not just a prison for the unwary, it's a cosmic digestive system, slowly breaking down trapped spirits into raw consciousness. The parallels to Dante's Inferno are impossible to ignore. His 9 circles of hell, each punishing sins with poetic precision, mirror accounts from modern near-death experiencers who describe descending through layered realms of increasing disorientation. One woman revived from cardiac arrest in 2017 recounted a maze of pitch-black tunnels where she encountered figures clawing at the walls, their faces melting like wax, only to later discover medieval Tibetan texts depicting the same imagery for the bardo, the transitional state between lives. Even more chilling are the reports from seasoned astral travelers who have stumbled into these zones accidentally, describing a sensation of being unspooled, as if their very identity was being unraveled thread by thread. But here's where quantum physics twists the myth into something even stranger. The phenomenon of entanglement, where particles mirror each other's states instantaneously across vast distances, has led theorists like David Bohm to propose that reality might be a hologram, its true nature hidden in implicate order. Now apply that to the labyrinth. Could these twisting corridors be the mind's attempt to navigate a reality where space and causality are fundamentally illusory? Projectors often describe the maze walls as semi-transparent, flickering between solidity and smoke, as if barely containing the seething chaos beyond. It's an unsettling vision that mirrors quantum foam theory, where space-time itself is thought to churn with virtual particles at the smallest scales. The most haunting accounts come from those who claim to have escaped. A monk from Bhutan's Tiger's Nest Monastery described using mantra vibrations to dissolve false turns, revealing the maze as a self-created construct of unattached karma. Meanwhile, a neuroscientist who accidentally astrally projected during a lab experiment in 2014 reported encountering a version of himself from 10 years prior, a younger, angrier incarnation that had to be confronted before the labyrinth would release him. Whether psychological archetype or interdimensional trap, one truth emerges. The maze doesn't just hold lost souls, it reflects them, and perhaps the only way out is to stop seeing walls altogether. High above the flickering treetops of Slavic folklore, there burns a creature of living flame, a being so radiant it blurs the line between myth and natural wonder. This is the Firebird, a celestial entity said to make its nest not in any earthly tree, but in the shimmering branches of the astral plane itself. Unlike the solitary phoenix of Western myth, this Slavic marvel travels between worlds, its feathers dripping molten gold that crystallizes into prophetic visions for those brave enough to catch them. Persian mystics told parallel tales of the Simurgh, a cosmic bird whose wingspan darkened stars, its nest hidden in the tree of knowledge that straddles dimensions. But what if these legends weren't just poetic metaphors? What if they were ancient attempts to describe something far stranger, a form of life unlike any we've imagined? Enter the enigma of ball lightning, those eerie, self-contained orbs of plasma that float through thunderstorms, defying the laws of conventional physics. For centuries, scientists dismissed these glowing spheres as atmospheric illusions, until a 2014 study in the Journal of Geophysical Research documented a ball lightning event inside a Beijing lab, lasting a record-breaking 17 seconds. Witnesses described its movement as purposeful, even curious, as if guided by some rudimentary intelligence. Russian plasma physicist Pyotr Kapitsa proposed a radical theory back in the 1950s that ball lightning might be a self-sustaining plasma structure, a primitive form of non-carbon-based life. Layer this with the work of Dr. Franklin Felber, who calculated that certain high-energy plasmas could theoretically exhibit lifelike behaviors, replication, adaptation, even a kind of metabolism. Suddenly, those old tales of the Firebird don't seem so far-fetched. Now consider the accounts of modern astral travelers who claim to have encountered these luminous beings firsthand. A Ukrainian projector in 2019 described a nest of swirling plasma vortices in the astral's upper layers, each pulse emitting harmonics that rearranged his thoughts like wind chimes. Even more compelling are the indigenous Evenki people of Siberia, whose shamans speak of Urgaki, spirit birds of pure energy that teach healing songs to those who dreamwalk. When shown plasma resonance patterns from MIT's recent experiments, tribal elders identified them instantly as Urgaki footprints. The implications ripple beyond mythology. If self-organizing plasma structures exist in the astral plane, a realm many believe operates at higher vibrational frequencies, could they be a form of consciousness our science hasn't yet quantified? Nobel laureate Ilya Prigoggin's work on dissipative structures shows how chaos can spontaneously generate order, while biophysicist Mi-Wan Ho described life as a liquid crystalline continuum. Perhaps the Firebird isn't just a legend, but a glimpse of an entire ecosystem of energy-based beings flickering at the edge of our perception. Yet for all its wonder, the myth carries a solemn warning. Slavic tales tell of fools who stole Firebird feathers, only to find their villages swallowed by unnatural wildfires. Persian poets wrote of the Simurgh burning away unworthy seekers' memories, leaving them hollow as scorched husks. Whether interpreted as literal entities or metaphors for the transformative power of higher knowledge, one truth emerges: some fires don't just illuminate, they test. And in the astral's infinite expanse, not all that glows is meant to be touched. High above the jagged peaks of the Himalayas, where the air thins to near nothingness, there exists a burial rite as unsettling as it is sacred. Tibetan sky burials, where the dead are left atop high cliffs for vultures to carry their remains skyward, stem from an ancient belief that the soul ascends best when the body is unburdened by earth. Yet some astral travelers claim to have glimpsed something even more extraordinary in the thin spaces between worlds: floating tombs, sarcophagi drifting untethered through the astral plane like ships on an invisible tide. These aren't just symbolic visions. Descriptions from independent projectors align with centuries-old legends and modern-day UFO encounters, painting a picture of a funerary practice that might transcend physical death itself. Take the bizarre case of the dragonfly sarcophagi, documented by British occultist David Farrant in 1978. During an astral projection in the ruins of a Scottish chapel, he described encountering a cluster of stone coffins hovering 6 feet above the ground, each carved with insectoid reliefs that pulsed with a faint blue light. Local folklore spoke of fairy caskets, coffins said to hold the remains of otherworldly beings too pure to be buried in soil. Even stranger, Farrant's sketches matched petroglyphs found in a sealed chamber beneath Malta's Hypogeum, a prehistoric necropolis where skeletons display elongated skulls unlike any known human lineage. Now shift from folklore to physics. In 2004, NASA engineer Eugene Podkletnov claimed to have achieved limited anti-gravity effects using spinning superconductors, a phenomenon he called gravity shielding. Though widely dismissed by mainstream science, his experiments eerily mirror descriptions from ancient Hindu texts of the Vimana, flying chariots said to be propelled by mercury vortex engines. Could these technologies, real or imagined, explain the floating tombs? Projectors often describe the sarcophagi as emitting a low-frequency hum, their surfaces etched with spiraling patterns reminiscent of electromagnetic coil designs. The most chilling accounts, however, come from those who have witnessed these tombs in motion. A Chilean psychic working with their government's UFO task force in 2016 described a mass sighting over the Atacama Desert, dozens of oblong objects resembling stone caskets moving in perfect formation before vanishing into thin air. Locals called them Los Defuntos Voladores, the Flying Dead, a legend dating back to pre-Incan times. Meanwhile, declassified Soviet documents from the 1960s detail K-Project experiments where subjects under sensory deprivation reported out-of-body encounters with crypts adrift in the ionosphere, their interiors radiating an oppressive psychic weight. So what binds these threads together? Tibetan monks whisper of the Bardo plains, transitional realms where souls await rebirth. Could the floating tombs be celestial holding vessels? Ufologists speculate about extraterrestrial soul catchers, technology designed to harvest consciousness. Even quantum biology offers a fringe theory that certain crystalline structures in bone might, under specific conditions, generate lattice vibrations capable of briefly counteracting gravity. Whether spiritual metaphor or interdimensional reality, the myth of the floating tombs forces us to confront a haunting possibility that death might not be an end but a transfer. And somewhere in the vast unknown, our remains might not rest in peace but in motion. What if the astral plane isn't a boundless void, but a grid, a vast, shimmering game board where every move carries cosmic consequences? This is the spine-tingling premise of the chessboard dimension, a realm described by seasoned travelers as a living labyrinth of logic and strategy where celestial rules dictate reality itself. The concept isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. Lewis Carroll, the mathematician behind Alice in Wonderland, hinted at this very idea in Through the Looking Glass, where Alice's journey mirrors a chess game's rigid structure, each square on the board a portal to a new set of physical laws. Carroll, a logician by trade, wove deeper truths into his whimsy. That reality might operate on rules as precise and unforgiving as a grandmaster's gambit. Now fast forward to modern physics. String theory posits that our universe could be one of countless brains, floating in a higher dimensional space, vibrating like the strings of a cosmic instrument. Some interpretations suggest these brains might collide or interact according to mathematical patterns, almost like pieces moving across an unseen board. The simulation hypothesis takes this further, proposing our entire existence might be an elaborate construct, its code humming beneath the surface of perception. Astral projectors who have stumbled into the chessboard dimension report eerily similar landscapes, grid-like expanses where geometric shapes shift positions with calculated precision, and where mistakes, a misstep, a careless thought, trigger cascading repercussions. One account from a French occultist in 1962 describes encountering floating pieces resembling luminous chess knights, their movements dictating shifts in the fabric of the realm itself. But here's where the myth collides with ancient tradition. Hindu cosmology speaks of Leela, the divine play where gods manipulate reality like a game, their actions scripting the rise and fall of universes. The Norse held that even Odin was bound by the rules of Weird, a cosmic web of fate woven like a chess problem only the Norns could solve. Even the Egyptian Book of the Dead contains a ritual where the deceased's heart is weighed against a feather on a celestial scale, a literal game of judgment with eternal stakes. These aren't just metaphors, they're blueprints for a universe where strategy transcends metaphor and becomes physics. Modern encounters deepen the mystery. In 2014, a group of lucid dreamers conducting synchronized experiments independently documented a checkered plane where their thoughts manifested as moving pieces. One participant's anxiety materializing as a black queen advancing relentlessly, another's focus clearing a path like a bishop's diagonal sweep. Skeptics argue these are subconscious projections, but the synchronization is hard to dismiss. Meanwhile, quantum researchers note that subatomic particles exhibit game-like behaviors, their states changing based on observation, as if reality itself is waiting for a player to make their move. Whether a neurological glitch or a glimpse into the scaffolding of existence, the chessboard dimension forces a chilling question. If the universe is a game, who or what holds the other side of the board? And when the final move is played, what happens to the pieces? Some myths whisper, others sing. The singing skulls are spectral relics said to echo with voices from beyond, their hollowed eye sockets humming with prophecies too terrible for mortal ears. From the obsidian skulls of Mesoamerican death cults to the eerie, oracle bones of Shang Dynasty China, cultures worldwide have revered these macabre artifacts as gateways to the astral plane. But what if these weren't just symbolic objects? What if, under the right conditions, bone itself could become a conduit for otherworldly communication? Take the infamous Mitchell Hedges crystal skull, discovered in 1924 beneath a Mayan altar. While skeptics dismiss it as a 19th century hoax, indigenous elders insist its true nature isn't physical but vibrational. Lacandon Maya shamans describe holding similar skulls during dream rituals, hearing them emit low-frequency tones that induced visions of ancestors. Modern acoustics research lends eerie credence to this. Certain quartz crystals resonate at frequencies between 7 and 8 Hz, the same range as human brainwaves during deep meditation. Even stranger, these infrasonic vibrations are known to trigger feelings of supernatural presence and spontaneous hallucinations. Could ancient priests have weaponized this phenomenon to simulate divine contact? The practice of trepanation, drilling or scraping holes into living skulls, takes this a step further. Archaeologists have uncovered trep and skulls across Peru, France, and Polynesia, some dating back 8,000 years. Mainstream theories suggest medical or ritual purposes, but esoteric traditions tell another story. Tibetan Buddhist texts describe opening the door of Brahma, a surgical rite allowing the soul to exit the body more freely during astral travel. A 1972 case study from the University of Zurich documented a trepanation enthusiast who claimed his self-made cranial hole granted him nightly access to a bone library in the astral plane, a vault of floating skulls that whispered forgotten histories in languages he somehow understood. Skeptics dismissed it as hypoxia-induced delusion until he accurately recited medieval Flemish poetry he'd never studied. Then there are the skulls that sing on their own. In 2009, paranormal investigators at England's Chillingham Castle recorded an unexplained phenomenon, audible humming emanating from the preserved skull of an executed prisoner, its jawbone vibrating without physical contact. Audio analysis revealed a tone matching the castle's natural resonant frequency, the same acoustic principle that allows opera singers to shatter glass. Folklore from the Scottish Highlands speaks of Corryvreckan, a whirlpool where drowned sailors' skulls are said to surface singing Gaelic laments during storms. Oceanographers later discovered the whirlpool generates infrasound waves strong enough to vibrate bone at a distance. Science offers partial explanations: acoustic resonance, piezoelectric properties of bone mineral, or even collective hallucination triggered by subsonic frequencies. But the consistency of these accounts across time and cultures suggests something more profound. Perhaps the singing skulls aren't mere objects, but living records, biological hard drives encoded with the final thoughts of their former occupants, waiting for the right vibrational key to unlock them. Or maybe, just maybe, the astral plane itself has a voice, and sometimes it chooses to speak through the mouths of the dead. Beneath the surface of recorded history, there whispers a legend not of places but of people, an elusive network of minds operating beyond physical borders, communicating not through letters or wires but across the intangible currents of the astral plane. This is the myth of the Invisible College, a secret society without headquarters or membership rolls, where initiates meet in the shimmering corridors of consciousness itself. The idea stretches back to the Rosicrucian manifestos of the early 17th century, those cryptic pamphlets that spoke of invisible masters guiding humanity's spiritual evolution from behind the veil. These weren't just allegorical figures. Adepts like Paracelsus and later Franz Bardon wrote of encountering robed entities during astral travels, beings who imparted alchemical secrets with a single touch to the forehead. Then there's Nikola Tesla's lesser-known obsession. While the inventor's groundbreaking work with electricity is well documented, his private journals reveal something far stranger: nightly conferences with what he called etheric intelligences. In 1899, during experiments in Colorado Springs, Tesla claimed to have received detailed schematics for a particle beam weapon from an unseen collective, transmitting the information in bursts of light only he could perceive. Skeptics dismissed this as the ramblings of an overworked genius, but recent declassified OSS files note that during World War II, Allied spies intercepted Nazi research into Tesla's astral contacts, complete with seance-like rituals attempting to replicate his methods. Perhaps the most chilling evidence comes from the CIA's once classified Gateway project. Leaked documents from the 1980s detail attempts to train operatives in controlled remote viewing, a form of astral espionage. One memo describes a session where Agent Monarch 12 allegedly penetrated a non-terrestrial meeting hall filled with figures in antiquated robes, discussing geopolitical events years before they unfolded. Even more unsettling, handwritten marginalia from Project Head Doctor Christopher Green speculates whether these beings were extratemporal actors or a hidden terrestrial group operating via neurobiological collective. Modern neuroscience offers a tantalizing parallel. Studies on transcranial magnetic stimulation show that targeted electromagnetic pulses can induce vivid hallucinations of presences or shared mental spaces. Could this explain centuries of astral college encounters? Or does the consistency of the descriptions, the robed figures, the telepathic knowledge transfer point to something beyond neural trickery? The Vedic concept of the Akashic records suggests that advanced minds might access a collective consciousness, while quantum entanglement theories propose that brains could synchronize across distances under specific conditions. Here's where the myth takes a darker turn. Occult warnings speak of false lodges in the astral, predatory collectives masquerading as enlightened guides to siphon psychic energy. Chilean diplomat Miguel Serrano's controversial White Brotherhood files describe Cold War-era Soviet experiments where prisoners subjected to sensory deprivation began channeling identical ascended master messages, all urging disarmament. Was this genuine contact, psychological warfare, or something more uncanny? Whether psychological phenomenon or interdimensional conspiracy, the Invisible College myth forces a profound question. If such a group exists, are they shepherds of human evolution or archivists documenting our rise and fall from the shadows? And in the vast library of the astral, who decides which pages get torn out? There's a place where the rules of geography collapse, where the very ground beneath our feet might not be solid at all, but a shell, a threshold to something far older and stranger. The myth of hollow earth gateways isn't just some madcap conspiracy. It's a thread woven through centuries of exploration, occultism, and even fringe science, suggesting that the astral plane holds passages to inner worlds hidden beneath our own. Think of it like an interstellar subway system, except the tunnels don't run through rock but through layers of consciousness itself. Start with Admiral Richard Byard's infamous 1947 Antarctic expedition. His declassified flight logs read like something out of a pulp novel. Descriptions of lush, ice-free valleys beyond the poles, sightings of flying discs, and radio transmissions mentioning an unknown civilization beneath the ice. Mainstream historians dismiss these as Cold War disinformation or the hallucinations of a pilot suffering from hypoxia. But occult traditions have a different take. They claim Byard didn't just stumble upon some hidden geothermal oasis, but an astral vortex, a place where the physical and metaphysical worlds thin enough to cross over. Theosophists like Helena Blavatsky wrote of Agharti, a subterranean kingdom accessed through psychic gateways in the Earth's crust, ruled by an ancient race of Ultima Thule adepts. Even more intriguing, Byard's descriptions mirror 19th century accounts from Arctic explorers like Frederick Cook, who spoke of warm winds and strange lights near the poles, phenomena modern science attributes to atmospheric anomalies, but which mystics insist are glimpses of something far more deliberate. Now pivot to the Nazis. The Third Reich's obsession with Antarctica wasn't just about territorial expansion. It was rooted in esoteric beliefs about Earth's hidden geography. The 1938 Schwabenland expedition wasn't merely mapping ice, it was hunting for entrances to Hollow Earth, guided by the writings of figures like Karl Horshofer, who blended Tibetan cosmology with Vril society mysticism. Their goal, to harness the inner sun, a metaphysical energy source said to power the subterranean world. Declassified Operation Highjump documents reveal that Byard's later mission was in part a response to these Nazi efforts, less a scientific survey than a psychic arms race. But here's where geology throws a wrench or perhaps a key into the myth. Scientists now recognize mantle plumes, upwellings of molten rock that create volcanic hotspots like Hawaii or Yellowstone. These aren't just geological quirks, they're potential energy conduits, channels where heat and electromagnetic forces surge toward the surface. Could these natural phenomena act as physical counterparts to astral gateways? Indigenous cultures from the Hopi to the Maori have long revered caves and volcanoes as portals to the underworld, places where shamans journeyed to commune with ancestors. Modern astral travelers report similar experiences near active geological zones, visions of tunnels spiraling downward, or encounters with beings who describe themselves as keepers of the deep. The most chilling accounts come from those who claim to have crossed the threshold. A Russian psychic working with the military in the 1960s documented an astral projection into what he called the inner aurora, a cavernous expanse lit by a swirling, artificial sky where humanoid figures moved through buildings carved from crystalline rock. His sketches, later analyzed by architects, contained structural principles defying known physics, anti-gravitational arcs, and fractal-based supports. Meanwhile, declassified CIA files from the Stargate project reference a remote viewer who described a network of luminous tunnels beneath the Andes, humming with a low-frequency tone that induced out-of-body states in anyone who heard it. So what's really down there? Geological reality insists on a molten core, a spinning dynamo of iron and nickel. But the persistence of the Hollow Earth myth across cultures, across eras, suggests something more nuanced. Maybe the gateways aren't physical at all, but vibrational, accessible only when consciousness slips into the right frequency. Or perhaps, as quantum theories of space-time suggest, the Earth isn't just a solid orb, but a nested set of realities, each layer humming just out of phase with the next. Whether literal or symbolic, the Hollow Earth gateways force us to confront a humbling truth. We know less about the ground beneath us than the stars above. And sometimes the deepest mysteries aren't in the heavens but underfoot. Somewhere in the labyrinth of the astral plane, there's said to be a place where time doesn't just bend, it archives. Imagine vast, echoing chambers where the air hums with the weight of countless lifetimes, shelves stretching into infinity, each holding not books but memories. These are the memory vaults, a metaphysical library rumored to store every thought, every heartbeat, every whispered secret from lives we've lived and forgotten. The concept might sound like science fiction, but its roots dig deep into humanity's oldest spiritual traditions. The ancient Egyptians believed in the Hall of Records, a celestial archive where Thoth, the god of wisdom, inscribed the soul's journeys across incarnations. Hindu texts describe Akashic Chronicles, a vibrational imprint of all existence accessible to enlightened sages. Even Plato's theory of anamnesis, the idea that learning is just remembering hints at a hidden reservoir of knowledge waiting to be tapped. But here's where modern psychology collides with the mystical. Carl Jung's collective unconscious, a shared psychic substrate of archetypes and primordial memories, mirrors these ancient ideas with uncanny precision. Jungian analysts describe patients recalling near-identical mythological symbols in dreams, despite no prior exposure to the stories. Then there's the eerie phenomenon of children who remember past lives with inexplicable accuracy. Take the case of James Leininger, a Louisiana boy who at age 2 began recounting vivid details of being a World War II pilot shot down over the Pacific. He named his aircraft carrier the USS Natoma Bay and identified a fellow pilot, Jack Larson. Details later verified by historians. Psychiatrists struggle to explain such cases through conventional means, leaving room for a spine-tingling possibility. Could these memories be withdrawals from some astral repository? Science tiptoes toward the unfathomable. Epigenetics reveals how trauma can leave molecular marks on DNA, passing fear responses or resilience down generations. In 2014, researchers at Emory University conditioned mice to fear a cherry blossom scent, then observed their offspring reacting to the same smell despite never encountering it, a haunting echo of ancestral memory. Meanwhile, quantum biologists theorize that consciousness might exploit microtubules in brain cells to read information entangled across time, like a cosmic Wi-Fi tapping into the memory vault's database. Yet the most compelling evidence comes from those who have ventured into these astral archives firsthand. A Tibetan monk's account from 1937 describes navigating crystalline corridors where his past lives played out like holograms, each triggered by touching a specific glyph. In 2011, a neurosurgeon documenting near-death experiences encountered a patient who recalled not just her own past lives, but snippets from unrelated historical events, as if she'd briefly accessed someone else's file. Skeptics dismiss these as confabulations, but the consistency across cultures and eras is hard to ignore. Whether neurological glitch or metaphysical truth, the memory vaults force us to confront a profound question. What if forgetting is just misplacing, and every moment we've ever lived is still out there, waiting to be remembered? And if these vaults are real, who or what is the librarian? Picture this: a symbol drawn in blood, ink, or pure thought pulses with a life of its own, twisting off the page to slither through the astral plane like a living thing. This is no mere metaphor. Across cultures and epochs, practitioners of the occult have insisted that certain marks, when charged with intention, can wake up. The myth of living symbols suggests that sigils, those cryptic designs used in magic, aren't just tools but vessels and sometimes passengers. Take the chaos magic movement of the late 20th century. Pioneers like Austin Osman Spare developed sigilization, a process of distilling desires into abstract glyphs, then killing the conscious mind's attachment to them through ritual or forgetfulness. The idea, the symbol sinks into the subconscious, working its will on reality like a psychic seed. But Spare's diaries hint at something darker. He describes sigils stalking his dreams, their shapes shifting in the periphery of his vision long after their creation. His successor, Peter Carroll, took it further, writing of sigils that outgrew their original purpose, manifesting as autonomous thought forms in the astral. One chilling account from Carroll's Liber Null describes a prosperity sigil that morphed into a hungering spiral, draining luck from everyone in its creator's social circle until ritually dissolved. Now rewind further to the bronze tablets of Mesopotamian curse magic, where priests inscribed cuneiform sigils meant to animate demonic enforcers. The Maklu texts describe clay figurines brought to life by these symbols, their mouths opened ceremonially to speak suffering into victims. Similarly, Egyptian hieroglyphs weren't just writing. The ka, or life force of a word, was believed to inhabit its shape. Temple carvings of serpents were ritually mutilated to prevent them from striking priests astrally. Even the Hebrew tradition of the golem hinges on this idea, animating clay by inscribing Emet, truth, on its forehead, then erasing the first letter to kill it. Met means death. The message is clear. Symbols don't just represent power. Under the right conditions, they become power. Modern neuroscience adds a twisted layer. Neuro-linguistic programming (NLP) studies how visual cues rewire the brain. Studies at Stanford in the 1990s showed that repetitive exposure to specific symbols could override decision-making processes, essentially programming behaviors. But what happens when these neural pathways take on a life of their own? Patients with obsessive-compulsive disorder often describe their compulsions as external forces, sometimes visualizing them as clawed hands or whispering shadows. Psychologists dismiss this as personification, but chaos magicians propose a scarier idea. That intense focus on a symbol might birth an egregore, a semi-independent psychic entity sustained by collective belief. The most disturbing evidence comes from shared hallucinations. In 2017, a Reddit-based occult group attempted to mass charge a sigil for revealing hidden truths. Within weeks, multiple members, unaware of each other's experiences, reported dreams of a gaunt figure with the sigil carved into its chest, offering secrets that later manifested in unsettling coincidences. Skeptics cry confirmation bias, but the overlap is eerie. Meanwhile, Tibetan monks have long practiced yantra meditation, focusing on geometric symbols until they hallucinate them floating in space, a state they claim allows direct dialogue with the symbol's spirit. So where does the symbol end and the entity begin? Quantum physics toys with the idea that observation collapses reality from possibility into actuality. Magicians take it further. That sustained observation, charged with emotion, might collapse something else into existence. Whether psychological artifact or astral intruder, living symbols force a terrifying question. Every time we doodle in a notebook or scroll past a corporate logo, could we be feeding something we don't understand? And if symbols can wake up, how do we know which ones already have? There are storms in the astral plane, but not the kind that drown cities or shatter trees. These are tempests of pure energy, crackling rivers of charged particles that twist through the void like living lightning. And like surfers chasing the perfect wave, there are those who ride them, the storm riders, entities said to harness these currents with terrifying grace. Picture a being woven from ionized air and intention, gliding along the spine of a plasma vortex as effortlessly as a seabird riding ocean winds. This isn't just poetic imagery, it's a recurring motif across cultures that knew nothing of electromagnetism or charged particles. The Vedic Maruts might be the oldest documented example. These wind gods weren't just personified breezes. The Rigveda depicts them as a roaring host clad in golden armor, their chariots drawn by antelopes, an uncanny metaphor for the way storm fronts leap and dart. Ancient hymns describe them dancing on the edges of clouds, shaping typhoons with their whirling spears. Modern meteorologists might scoff until you consider sprites and elves, those transient luminous events flickering above thunderstorms, resembling nothing so much as celestial dancers caught mid-performance. Then there's St. Elmo's fire, the eerie glow that clings to ship masts and airplane wings during electrical storms. Medieval sailors swore these blue flames were spirits, sometimes benevolent guides, sometimes harbingers of doom. Columbus's crew reportedly saw them as the embodiment of their patron saint, dancing along the rigging like ghostly acrobats. Scientists now know it's plasma ionization, but the old tales linger. Fishermen off the coast of Crete still whisper of St. Elmo's riders, figures glimpsed momentarily in the corona discharge, their outlines crackling with borrowed light. The most tantalizing evidence comes from modern astral projectors. A declassified CIA document from the 1970s details an operative's account of luminous filaments in the astral plane, threading through space like a web of neon rivers. He described encountering entities composed of condensed lightning, riding these pathways at impossible angles, their movements syncing with terrestrial thunderstorms thousands of miles below. Even more compelling are the independent reports from electrical engineers who practice astral travel. They consistently describe the same phenomenon, often using identical terms like ion highways or charged channels. But what fuels these riders? Plasma physicists note that the ionosphere, the layer of our atmosphere brimming with charged particles, resonates at frequencies overlapping human brainwaves. Could the storm riders be an emergent form of consciousness, born from the marriage of electricity and intention? Or perhaps they're something older, the Hindu Marats reimagined for the quantum age, reminding us that every force we name and measure was once a god, and might still be for those who know where to look. One thing's certain, if you ever find yourself adrift in the astral plane as the air hums with gathering energy, watch the horizon. You might glimpse them silhouettes etched in violet light racing the storm. And when they pass, listen close. The old sailors swore you could hear them laughing. In the heart of the astral plane's shifting landscapes lies a place where time itself has crystallized, a vast, shimmering expanse known as the Glass Desert. Picture a sea of fractured light stretching to the horizon, every grain beneath your feet not sand, but frozen instants, each fragment a suspended moment glittering like crushed diamonds. Travelers who have wandered this wasteland describe an eerie silence, as if sound itself has been captured mid-vibration, and a disorienting sense of being outside chronology, where past, present, and future lie strewn together like shattered stained glass. The parallels to our physical world are uncanny. In the Libyan desert, stretches of golden silica glass, some pieces weighing over 50 pounds, litter the dunes, their origins baffling scientists for decades. These formations, known as Libyan desert glass, bear no volcanic or meteoric signatures, yet their purity suggests temperatures hotter than the surface of the sun. One spine-tingling theory: ancient airbursts, cosmic detonations so powerful they fused the very sand into glass in an instant, freezing the landscape in a single cataclysmic flash. It's as if the desert itself became a snapshot of destruction, a phenomenon eerily mirrored in the astral glass desert's legend, a realm where some say a cosmic event shattered time itself. Now layer this with the darker thread of human experimentation. In the shadow of the Manhattan Project, Robert Oppenheimer and his team secretly explored frozen light, attempting to slow photons to a near standstill using electromagnetic fields. Declassified documents hint at fleeting success, moments where light appeared trapped in viscous, glass-like states. Witnesses reported a chilling sight, beams of illumination bending like molten crystal, as if time had congealed around them. Was this merely advanced optics, or did they inadvertently brush against the same forces that shaped the astral glass desert? Those who claim to have traversed this timeless wasteland speak of visions flickering beneath its surface, scenes from alternate histories, or futures yet to unfold, sealed like insects in amber. One account from a French mystic in 1968 describes stumbling upon a towering figure mid-stride. its form perfectly preserved in transparent silica, face contorted in a scream no one could hear. Another projector, a physicist from Kyoto, theorized the glass desert might be a buffer zone for collapsed timelines where probabilities that never manifested go to solidify. Yet the most unsettling detail comes from those who have tried to manipulate the desert's fragments. Occult texts warn that removing even a grain from this realm can fracture the traveler's own timeline, creating dissonance between their memories and reality. Modern quantum physicists might nod grimly. Their studies on retrocausality suggest that observing a particle can influence its past state, as if the act of measurement shatters a delicate glass pane of possibilities. Whether metaphor or metaphysical reality, the glass desert forces us to confront time not as a river, but as a mosaic, each piece sharp enough to cut, beautiful enough to mesmerize, and fragile enough to rewrite everything with a single careless touch. Deep in the astral plane's echoing chambers, there's a sound that chills the soul, not a melody, not a rhythm, but something far more uncanny. This is the Bone Orchestra, a symphony of instruments not carved from wood or metal, but shaped from the very essence of spirits. Imagine flutes that wail with the voices of the departed, drums stretched with skin that remembers its heartbeat, and strings vibrating with the residual energy of lives once lived. The concept might sound like Gothic fiction, but its roots slither through history's darkest rituals and most baffling acoustic phenomena. Take the Tibetan kangeling, a trumpet carved from a human thigh bone, used in Churd rituals to summon spirits. These aren't mere macabre artifacts. Practitioners believe the bone retains a vibrational memory of its former owner, acting as a conduit between worlds. When played, the kangeling's shrill cry isn't just sound, it's an invitation, a sonic key twisting in the lock between dimensions. Similarly, the Aztecs crafted teponaztli drums from the skulls of sacrificed warriors, their hollow resonance said to channel the battle cries of the dead. Even the ancient Greeks told of Pan Syrinx, a flute fashioned from reeds that once held the trapped spirit of a nymph, its music carrying her whispers on every note. Now, fast forward to the modern era of ghost hunting and EVP's electronic voice phenomena. Paranormal investigators often capture disembodied voices on recording devices, snippets of speech emerging from static-like echoes across time. But some of the most unsettling recordings aren't voices at all, they're music. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium archives hold a notorious clip from 1987. A piano melody played in an empty room, its notes slightly discordant, as if the keys were being pressed by invisible, tremulous hands. Acoustic engineers who analyzed the recording noted something impossible. The resonances matched a piano model not manufactured until the 1950s, decades after the sanitarium's peak use. Then there's the legend of sonic levitation, the idea that certain frequencies can defy gravity itself. Tibetan monks speak of the path of the rainbow body, where advanced practitioners dissolve their physical forms into light through harmonic chanting. Spanish conquistadors documented Inca priests using massive stone drums to make boulders dance into place during temple construction. Even the biblical story of Joshua's trumpets bringing down Jericho's walls hints at this power. Modern science offers a sliver of validation. Cymatics experiments show how sound waves can organize matter into intricate patterns, and infrasound frequencies below human hearing can induce sensations of presence or even vibrations in solid objects. But here's where the myth crescendos into something darker. Occult manuscripts warn of spirit binds, instruments that don't just channel the dead but trap them. A 19th-century German grimoire describes a violin strung with hair from a hanged man, its music pulling ghosts into its hollow body like flies to honey. More chilling are accounts from modern mediums who claim certain melodies act as soul cages, with astral travelers reporting zones in the afterlife where looping tunes create vortexes, imprisoning disoriented spirits in endless, dissonant loops. Whether acoustic archaeology or metaphysical horror, the Bone Orchestra forces us to reconsider music's true power. It's not just art or entertainment, it's a force that can bridge worlds, bend physics, and perhaps even rewrite the rules of life and death. And somewhere in the astral's vast concert hall, the performance never ends, but the audience isn't always willing. Imagine walking into a library where the shelves don't hold books, they hold faces. Endless rows of living, shifting visages flickering like candles in an endless hall, each one a perfect replica of every human who's ever lived, every expression they've ever made. This is the Library of Faces, one of the astral plane's most unsettling archives, a place where identity isn't just recorded, but preserved in a state of eerie animation. The concept might sound like dystopian fiction, but its roots tangle through history's strangest corners. Ancient Egyptian funerary texts describe the Hall of Two Truths, where the deceased's face would be weighed against the feather of Maat, their every emotion etched into the walls for divine judgment. Tibetan Buddhists speak of the Bardo mirrors, infinite reflective surfaces showing every possible version of the self across lifetimes. Even Renaissance alchemists like Paracelsus wrote of the facial archetypes, claiming the human countenance was merely a temporary mask drawn from a cosmic reservoir of templates. Now fast forward to the digital age, where facial recognition algorithms scan billions of images to map the geometry of human features with chilling precision. AI researchers at MIT have discovered something uncanny. Deep neural networks trained on facial data sometimes hallucinate phantom faces that don't exist, yet feel unsettlingly familiar. Some theorize these glitches aren't errors, but glimpses into a latent space where all possible human faces mathematically converge, a digital echo of the astral library. Even spookier, reports from tech workers who have trained these systems describe recurring, base faces that appear across datasets as if the code is pulling from some primordial blueprint. Then there's the quantum angle. Physicists exploring the holographic principles suggest that information, including the data of our appearances, might be encoded on the boundary of space-time like a cosmic fingerprint database. Remote viewers working with the U.S. government Stargate project occasionally reported accessing a facsimile chamber in the astral realm, where they could try on different faces like masks, experiencing flashes of others' memories. One declassified account from 1983 describes an operative temporarily adopting the features of a Soviet official, only to later identify the man from embassy photos, a man he'd never physically met. But the library's darkest lore comes from those who claim it isn't just a passive archive. Doppelganger legends across cultures warn of face stealers, entities that pluck visages from this spectral catalogue to wear as disguises. A 1972 case from Psychiatric Archives details a patient who insisted the mirror people were replacing faces in his sleep, leaving him with features that didn't quite fit. Modern sleep paralysis sufferers often describe shadowy figures with distorted or shifting faces. Could these be accidental visitors to the library's restricted sections? Perhaps the most haunting question isn't whether this archive exists, but who or what librarians its endless aisles. And when we look in the mirror each morning, how can we be certain the face looking back is still ours? Somewhere in the astral plane's infinite expanse, the very ground rebels against the laws of physics. Mountains ripple like liquid, peaks flow like syrup, and valleys shift like quicksilver in an unseen current. These are the liquid mountains, a phenomenon that defies everything we know about geology, gravity, and solid matter. Picture Everest inverted, not frozen in stone, but cascading downward in slow, undulating waves, its summit dissolving like sugar in water only to reform moments later. It's a sight that would make any physicist shudder, yet accounts of these mercurial monoliths appear in esoteric texts and modern astral travel logs with eerie consistency. The comparison to non-Newtonian fluids is uncanny. In our world, substances like oobleck, a mix of cornstarch and water, behave as both solid and liquid depending on pressure. Stomp on it and it hardens like concrete. Gently press a finger and it yields like broth. Now imagine that principle scaled to the size of a mountain range, where the sheer weight of astral matter responds not to force but to intention. Projectors describe walking across these surreal landscapes, feeling the ground firm beneath their feet with each focused step, only to watch it melt into mist if their concentration wavers. It's as if the mountains are alive, reacting to the observer's will, a concept that mirrors quantum theory's observer effect, where the act of measurement alters the state of a particle. Real-world oddities add fuel to the myth. Climbers on Everest have reported mirage mountains, phantom peaks that appear and vanish in the thin, refracted air, their outlines wavering like heat haze. 19th-century explorers dubbed these Fata Morgana, after the sorceress Morgan Le Fay, blaming her enchantments for the illusion. But what if the mirages aren't just tricks of light? Tibetan monks speak of hidden valleys accessible only in deep meditation, where the landscape reshapes itself to guide worthy seekers. Similarly, indigenous Alaskan tribes describe breathing mountains, glacial formations that appear to inhale and exhale fog in rhythmic pulses, as if sculpted by invisible hands. Alchemy's Mercury Mountains offer the most tantalizing parallel. Ancient texts describe philosopher's mercury, a primal substance neither solid nor liquid, capable of dissolving gold or hardening into mirrors at a touch. The legendary Emerald Tablet speaks of the sun rising from the sea of Mercury, a metaphor for enlightenment emerging from chaos. Modern interpretations suggest alchemists weren't just working with physical elements, but documenting astral terrain, regions where matter and consciousness blur. Even the symbol for Mercury, the caduceus, shows serpents winding around a staff, mirroring the liquid mountain's undulating slopes. The implications ripple beyond metaphor. If consciousness can shape the astral plane's topography, what does that mean for our own reality? String theory suggests extra dimensions curled into invisibility, while holographic universe models propose that our 3D world might be a projection of information stored at the cosmic edge. Perhaps the liquid mountains are a glimpse into that deeper architecture, a place where the rules we take for granted are merely suggestions, waiting to be rewritten by a mind bold enough to try. After all, if a mountain can flow like water, what else might be possible when we dare to question the nature of what's solid? Doors don't always lead to places, sometimes they lead to whens. Hidden in the astral plane's ever-shifting architecture, there's said to be a threshold that doesn't just bend space but time itself, the doorway of ages. Unlike the linear march of history we're bound to in the physical world, this myth suggests the astral holds corridors where past, present, and future bleed into one another like wet ink. Picture stepping through an ordinary-looking door only to find yourself knee-deep in the muddy trenches of World War I, or face-to-face with a bustling marketplace from a civilization that hasn't existed for millennia. These aren't just hallucinations, they're documented phenomena, with accounts spanning from accidental time slips to orchestrated experiments that still haunt the edges of credible history. Take the infamous Philadelphia experiment of 1943. According to leaked documents and sailor testimonies, the U.S. Navy allegedly attempted to render the USS Eldridge invisible to radar using electromagnetic fields. The results, if lore is to be believed, were catastrophic: sailors fused into bulkheads, others vanishing mid-step only to reappear days later babbling about seeing through time. While the Navy denies the experiment ever occurred, declassified memos from Project Rainbow confirm research into degaussing technology, and physicist Albert Einstein's unpublished notes reference temporal displacement through controlled electromagnetic torsion. Even stranger are the accounts from astral travelers who claim to have encountered the Eldridge adrift in the astral plane, its hull flickering between decades like a stuck film reel. Time slips add another layer to the mystery. In 1954, a Tokyo University professor named Toshiro Mifune swore he stepped into an elevator only to exit into a version of the building from the 1920s complete with period-appropriate newspapers and clothing. More recently, a 2019 Reddit thread documented hundreds of nearly identical anecdotes, people rounding a corner or opening a door to find themselves briefly immersed in another era, the past overlapping with the present like a double-exposed photograph. Parapsychologists theorize these could be temporal glitches, moments when the astral and physical planes momentarily sync at different points in time. Quantum physics offers a spine-tingling explanation, retrocausality. Experiments with entangled particles show that observing a particle in the present can alter its state in the past, as if effect precedes cause. Dr. Ron Mallett, a theoretical physicist, has even proposed designs for a time machine using circulating lasers to twist spacetime into a loop. If consciousness itself can influence quantum states, as the controversial observer effect suggests, could astral projection allow the mind to navigate these loops intentionally? Yet the doorway of ages carries dire warnings. Tibetan monks speak of karmic echoes, where travelers who meddle with the past return to find their present irreparably altered. A declassified CIA file from the Stargate project recounts a remote viewer who astrally visited ancient Egypt only to suffer seizures upon reawakening, his memories overwritten with fluent hieroglyphic script he'd never studied. Whether interdimensional accident or metaphysical safeguard, one truth resonates. Time may be more fluid than we dare to believe, but some doors, once opened, can't be closed. And whatever waits on the other side might not stay there. After centuries of exploration, after countless tales of silver cords and phantom cities, after every myth we've unraveled, here's the ultimate twist. What if the astral plane, the very foundation of all these mysteries, doesn't actually exist? Not as a place, at least. What if it's nothing more than a fever dream whispered across generations, a collective hallucination so vivid we've mistaken it for reality? This is the last myth and perhaps the most unsettling of all, the idea that the astral plane itself might be the greatest illusion. Consider the sheer paradox. Every culture describes the astral with uncanny similarities, luminous landscapes, shadow entities, time-defying realms. Yet science has yet to detect even a whisper of its existence. Skeptics argue these shared visions stem from the brain's hardwired responses to altered states. When deprived of sensory input, our neural networks default to a kind of story mode, stitching together fragments of memory, myth, and primal fear into something that feels real. Studies on sensory deprivation tanks show that even ordinary people with no esoteric training report out-of-body experiences and encounters with beings after just hours in isolation. Could the astral simply be the mind's theater, playing the same archetypal scripts on repeat? But then, how do we explain the impossible details? Take the case of Swedish engineer Olof Johnson, who in the 1960s astrally projected to a secret Soviet research facility, later sketching its layout with precision, down to the placement of file cabinets years before satellite imagery confirmed it. Or the countless near-death experiencers who have described surgical procedures they witnessed from the ceiling, recalling conversations and tools no unconscious brain could guess. If the astral is pure imagination, why does it so often return facts the conscious mind couldn't possibly know? Quantum physics dances at the edges of this mystery. Theories like the holographic principle suggest our universe might be a projection of information stored at its boundaries, a cosmic illusion. If that's true, could the astral plane be a glimpse behind the curtain, a place where consciousness, unshackled from the brain's filters, perceives the raw data of existence? Some researchers propose that what we call the astral is actually the implicate order, a hidden layer of reality where time and space haven't yet crystallized into the world we know. It's a haunting thought that every astral traveler wasn't visiting another dimension but peeling back this one. Yet the darkest interpretation comes from the ancients themselves. Hindu sages spoke of Maya, the grand illusion that veils truth. Gnostic texts describe the material world as a prison, its bars forged from false perceptions. Maybe the astral isn't the myth, maybe we are. The final, chilling possibility that all these myths, all these journeys were never about discovering another realm. They were about realizing this one isn't what it seems. And if that's true, the greatest mystery isn't where the astral plane lies, it's why we needed to invent it at all. From silver cords tethering souls to phantom cities hidden beneath the waves, these 35 myths aren't just stories, they're fragments of humanity's oldest, most primal question: what lies beyond? Each tale, whether whispered by Tibetan monks or stumbled upon by modern astral travelers, reveals our relentless hunger to map the unmappable, to name the unnameable. The astral plane isn't just a realm of spirits and shadows, it's a mirror reflecting our fears, our hopes, and the dizzying possibility that reality might be far stranger than we've been taught. But here's the beautiful twist: these myths don't demand belief, they invite curiosity. Maybe you felt the tug of a dream that lingered too vividly upon waking, or caught a flicker of movement in the corner of your eye that vanished when you turned. Perhaps you've stood beneath a starry sky and sensed just for a moment that something or someone was staring back. These aren't just quirks of the mind. They're threads in the same tapestry woven by every culture across time, each adding their own stitches to the grand, unfinished portrait of the unseen. So what do you think? Have you walked the chessboard dimension in your sleep or heard the bone orchestra's haunting refrain? The comments below aren't just a space for reactions, they're a digital campfire where we can trade stories and theories as old as humanity itself. And this is just the beginning. The astral plane's mysteries run deeper than we've yet dared to explore, from the pulsing veins of hollow earth to the fractured timelines of the glass desert. So stay curious, keep questioning, and remember, the next myth might not be waiting in some distant realm, but in the very next dream you refuse to dismiss. Until then, keep one eye open. The veil is thin.